Welcome back to the deep dive, and today we're going to really get into some fascinating stuff. So we got a ton of requests to do a deep dive on Ashwini Nakshatra.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people want to know about it. It's really quite a fundamental energy.
Right, and so to really unpack this for you guys,
Mm.
we've pulled together a whole bunch of sources. Um, Everything from its position in the cosmos to the really captivating mythology.
And how those ideas are still so relevant to us today, Really fascinating.
Yeah, okay, let's start. So first off, the name Ashwini comes from Ashvin, which means
The twins.
the twins, of course, and it's represented by the horse's head.
Right, and astronomically, this nakshatra is part of the constellation Aries, and it's mostly marked by these two super bright stars,
Okay.
Hamal,
Huh.
which is also known as Alpha Aries, and then Sheraton, which is also known as Beta Aries.
Got it.
And then what's really interesting is there's this fainter star called Mesartim,
That's Sartim.
which is part of this whole grouping of stars. Astronomically, it's called an asterism, which is basically like a recognizable pattern of stars.
Okay, so like the Big Dipper.
Exactly. So Hamal is positioned around 9 to 13 degrees in Aries.
Okay.
And sometimes it actually borders the next nakshatra, which is Parani.
Wow.
And then Sharatan is close by, around 10 degrees Aries.
So the twins thing really comes up here too, huh? With the two bright stars.
Totally. And that's probably why, like, ancient skywatchers would have picked up on that.
Yeah.
And if you look at the timeline historically, it kind of gets even more interesting. You see, between 700 BCE and 300 CE, the vernal equinox, which marks the start of spring,
Right.
actually occurred in Ashwini.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that basically means that Ashwini was like this super crucial point in the year.
Yeah, it makes sense with the whole new beginnings, rebirth energy.
Totally.
Okay, so how does all this like timing stuff relate to, our experience of the year now?
Okay, so if you think about the yearly cycle, right, Ashwini is associated with around dusk in March, which is when the sun is in Pisces and Ashwini is setting. So it's like that in-between time when winter is ending and spring is about to start.
I see, I see. So like something's ending, but something new is about to begin.
Yes.
That duality again.
Yeah,
Cool. Now the mythology is super interesting here, so let's talk about that.
it really is. It all starts with Surya, the sun god, and his wife Sanjana,
Okay.
who is also known as Sandhya. Now, Sanjana was the daughter of Vishwakarma.
Vishwakarma, the divine architect.
That's him.
Yeah,
And she actually found the heat from Syria unbearable.
I can imagine.
Like living next to a furnace all the time, right?
Intense. Yeah. So what did she do?
She did something pretty wild. She created a copy of herself, like a perfect replica.
Whoa.
Yeah, named Chaya, and basically left Syria.
Sneaky.
Yeah, a little bit. So Chaya stayed with Syria, had a son named Shani.
Sheni. Saturn.
Yes. And then Surya eventually realized what was going on.
Mhm.
Sanjana came back to him and they had 3 kids together. Yama, the god of death.
Right.
Yamuna, the sacred river, and another son.
Okay, some pretty heavy hitters there in that family.
It is a celestial family drama for sure.
It really is. So, okay, where do the Ashwini Kumaras fit in all of this?
Well, Sanjana still couldn't handle Surya's heat, so she turned herself into a mare.
A mare, like a female horse.
Yep, and went down to Earth.
Okay.
Surya, being completely smitten with her, transformed himself into a horse too and found her.
And they had the twins.
Exactly. They had the Ashwini Kumaras who were born from Sanjana's nostrils while she was in horse form.
Okay, that is such a strange detail. There's got to be some deeper meaning there.
Oh, there is. We'll get to the horse symbolism in a minute. But there's another piece of this myth that's really interesting.
Okay.
So Sanjana actually went to her dad, Vishwakarma, complaining about Surya's heat.
Of course.
And Vishwakarma used his divine powers to make Surya's light less intense, and then he used that extra energy to create Vishnu's discus.
Whoa.
Yeah, and other divine weapons.
Okay, so he, like, toned down the sun's power. Is there something like that in astronomy, too?
It's kind of amazing, but there is. Stars, when they're first forming, they're incredibly bright, but as they mature, they become less luminous.
Oh, so it's like the myth is reflecting an actual cosmic process.
Yeah, it's wild.
That is so cool. And you mentioned before that there's a theme of twins in Surya's lineage.
Yeah, you've got Yama and Yamuna, and then, of course, the Ashwini Kumaras. It just emphasizes that duality that's part of Ashwini.
Right, so we've got the twins, the horse head, the constellation with the twin stars, the equinox, dusk in March. Okay, that's a lot. So now let's really unpack what the horse means for Ashwini.
Okay, so the horse, it's layered, right? It's super symbolic. The Ashwini Kumaras are born from the nostrils of the horse, so they have a direct connection to the ENT area.
ENT, like ears, nose, and throat.
Exactly. And this connection extends to people who work in those fields, particularly surgeons.
Oh, wow. So that's really specific.
It is.
That's really interesting.
It is. And because they're the physicians of the gods, the horse also represents medicine and healing more generally.
Right.
They're also connected to Ushas, the dawn, which symbolizes new beginnings, especially in biology.
Makes sense.
They're associated with herbal medicine, gardening, all things that help things grow.
It's all about life and healing with them.
It is. And of course, there's the speed and action of the horse.
Right. Like transportation back in the day.
Exactly. And that translates to modern things like cars, but more importantly, emergency services.
Like ambulances.
Yeah, those fast responses to help people.
Wow. The horse's speed matches the urgency of those situations.
Totally.
Okay, let's talk more about the Ashwini Kumaras themselves now. What are they like? What are their stories?
So one story is that they were denied the soma, the drink of immortality, by the higher gods like Indra.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting, right? It suggests they were kind of excluded despite their healing powers.
Yeah.
Makes you think about those power dynamics,
It really does.
But they're also connected to honey and beekeeping.
Beekeeping, really?
Yeah. And this links them back to their planetary ruler, Ketu.
Right.
And it even ties into the sting of a bee. There's that duality again, right? The sweetness of the honey, the healing, and then the sting.
Wow, yeah. So what's their power or Shakti?
Their Shakti is called Shidravyapani Shakti,
Okay.
and that basically means the power to get things done fast.
Okay.
But it can also mean the ability to rally people together. It's not just about healing one person, it's about a whole community.
I see. So they're about helping on a bigger scale, too.
They are. They want to make the world free of disease.
Wow.
And they're particularly associated with the ears, eyes, and the brain, again, with that horse head imagery.
Right. Makes sense.
And, that swiftness is always there.
They sound pretty awesome, like dynamic healers.
They are, They're described as young, cheerful, handsome.
Oh, okay.
And just always ready to help.
Nice. I like it. Now, is there anything in other cultures that's like Ashwini?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The ancient Egyptians associated Aries with Amun-Ra, their sun god, who had a ram's head.
The ram.
Yeah, which represents fertility and creation.
Okay, similar to the horse, like new beginnings.
Totally.
Right.
And then the Greeks had Phrixus and Hele, who were rescued by a golden ram.
Right.
And that ram is also linked to Aries. And even medieval Muslim astronomers, they referred to Aries as the ram.
So the ram is kind of a big theme here, too.
It is, but it gets interesting because later in Europe, there were some different interpretations.
Oh.
Yeah, in the 1600s, there was a cartographer who saw Aries as a bee.
A bee? Interesting.
Yeah, maybe connected to the honey we talked about. And then in 1620, another interpretation saw it as a worm or even a poisonous creature.
Oh, wow, that's different.
It is. It just goes to show how these symbols change over time and in different places.
Right, so many perspectives.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the Vedic astrology, though.
Okay.
We've got to talk about Nakshatra Padas and Ashwini.
Right. So Ashwini has 4 padas, and each one falls in a different zodiac sign. So the first one is Aries, ruled by Mars. The second is Taurus, ruled by Venus. The third is Gemini, ruled by Mercury. And the fourth is Cancer, ruled by the moon.
Wow. So even within Ashwini, there are all these different energies mixed in.
Totally.
It's complex.
Yeah. But the main influences are still Mars and Ketu.
Right.
And Mars brings that courage, passion, drive, and Ketu brings that spirituality and letting go.
A kind of balance between action and introspection.
Yes.
So are there any famous people whose lives reflect Ashwini?
There are some really fascinating connections. So, for example, there was this ENT surgeon
Right.
who literally wrote the book on ENT.
Okay.
And they had Ketu in Ashwini.
Wow, that makes sense.
Right. It just fits so perfectly.
That's what we...
And then there was this really influential ophthalmologist.
The eyes.
Yes. And they were known for a specific surgical instrument they developed for cataract surgery.
Interesting.
And their Mercury was in Kritika, another nakshatra.
Okay.
But still, the eyes,
Yeah, that sensory organ connection is there.
It is.
Okay, cool.
Anyone else?
There's also this American neurosurgeon.
The brain.
Yep. And they were really known for their work on a particular endocrine disorder.
Okay.
And they had Jupiter in Ashwini.
Wow.
So again, that link to the brain.
That's pretty amazing how their work Mirrors the nakshatra's themes.
It is. And then there's this amazing Indian jurist, economist, social reformer,
Okay.
real champion for the rights of those who had been marginalized.
Yeah,
And they had their son in Ashwini.
makes sense.
Yeah, it really connects to that Shidra Vyapani Shakti, the power to uplift and empower.
Right, fighting for those who've been denied their rights.
Exactly.
Powerful stuff.
It is. And, it's interesting because Ashwini is also associated with figures who did some pretty, controversial things.
Oh,
Yeah, some infamous people, we'll say.
okay.
And they had their son in Ashwini, too, so it's like that same energy, that power to mobilize, but it can be directed in different ways.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword in a way.
Yeah. Okay, so Ashwini is also connected to a lot of festivals, right?
It is. In many Indian calendars, Ashwini marks the beginning of the solar new year.
Wow.
And this is celebrated with different names all across India. Chaitra Navaratri, Gudi Padwa, Ugadi,
Right.
Vishu, Pana Sankranti, Bihu, and Baisakhi.
Wow, so many.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's all about fresh starts.
New beginnings.
Yeah.
And Lord Rama's birthday is during this time, too, right?
It is during the first 9 days of Chaitra when the sun is exalted.
Powerful time.
It is. And Hanuman Jayanti, the celebration of Hanuman the healer, also falls in Chaitra.
Lots of healing and renewal energy.
Totally. And then when the moon is in Ashwini during the month of Ashwin, there's the full moon called Sharat Purnima
Okay.
or Kojagiri Purnima. And this is when people believe the moon showers nectar down on us.
Wow, that sounds magical.
It is a beautiful night. It's also associated with Radha Krishna and Parvati Shiva's dances.
Oh, wow.
And there's this tradition of putting kheer, a kind of rice pudding or milk, under the moonlight.
To absorb the energy.
Exactly.
That's a cool tradition.
It is. And the whole month of Ashwin is important. It's when Pitru Paksha happens.
Pitru Paksha,
Yeah.
honoring the ancestors.
Yep. And big festivals like Saraswati Puja, Durga Ashtami, Mahanavami, and Dashara, which is also called Vijaya Dashami.
Okay.
And Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity, is also worshipped when the sun is in Ashwini.
So it's a very auspicious time for abundance.
It is.
So much happens then.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about some of the deeper symbolism associated with Ashwini.
Okay, well, one analogy that's really interesting is the fertilization process.
Okay.
You know how the fastest sperm reaches the egg?
Right.
It's like that burst of energy, and then once the sperm's head is in, the egg changes so nothing else can get in.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
So much of Ashwini is about swift action and that cutting off.
It really is.
And the word Ashwa means to arrive quickly.
That's right. And it's interesting because Arava, or Arabia, is connected to the land of horses.
Oh, really? I never knew that.
It is.
Cool. So what else?
Well, Ashwini can also be seen as this manifestation of Ardhanarishwara.
Ardhanarishwara, the combined form of Shiva and Shakti.
Exactly. That duality again.
Makes sense.
And the Ashwini Kumaras are also known as Dasra, which means charming and beautiful,
Okay.
and Nasatya, which means someone who can remove diseases or flaws quickly.
Interesting.
And because of this Nasatya aspect, Ashwini is a parihara nakshatra for lighter karmas.
So, like, remedies done under Ashwini can be really effective.
Exactly.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
Oh.
There's also a connection to the Ashwamedha Yajna.
The horse sacrifice.
Yes, which symbolizes the sun's return, that life-giving force.
Okay.
And you see that twin birth motif, again, in stories like Lava and Kusha, Yama and Yami.
Right.
And the Ashwini Kumaras are among the 33 divas.
33 divas. So they're pretty important.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Wow. Anything else?
Well, there's also the connection to prana, that vital life force, and specifically the balance of Agni and Vayu.
Agni, fire, and Vayu, air.
Yes. And Ashwini governs Udana Vayu.
Which is the upward breath.
That's right. The breath that helps us speak and connect to higher consciousness.
Okay.
And, all these qualities of a horse, the beauty, the energy, the strength, the freedom.
They're all part of Ashwini.
Exactly.
That vitality.
Yeah, and there's a story about Chavana Rishi.
Okay, who is that?
So he was born premature and aged really quickly, but the Ashwini twins gave him his youth back and healed his eyesight.
Wow.
And in return, he gave them the right to participate in the Soma ritual.
Oh, wow.
Remember, they were excluded from that before.
Right. So it's like they overcome that obstacle.
Totally.
That's a great story.
Yeah, and there's the connection to Vishwakarma and Chitra Nakshatra.
Chitra, the fixed point.
Right, and the Kheers from Dasharatha's Yajna, the one that led to the births of Rama and his brothers,
Okay.
that was blessed by the Ashwini Kumaras.
Wow. They really are all about healing and new beginnings.
They are.
So let's talk about how Ashwini connects to our inner energies, our Shakti.
Well, Ashwini has strong connections to Saraswati, Durga, and Lakshmi.
Those are some powerful goddesses.
They are. Saraswati represents that flow of energy
Yeah.
and sound. Durga is that Kundalini Shakti, that primal force.
Right.
And Lakshmi, of course, brings abundance.
So Ashwini is about activating all of those energies within us.
It is. It's about those initial desires and how they move upward towards manifestation.
Wow. So it's like helping us reach our full potential.
In a way, yes. It's about restoring that subtle sight and hearing.
Beyond just the physical senses.
Exactly. And it governs those fundamental forces of attraction and aversion.
The basis of creation. Brahmatattva?
That's it.
Okay. Anything else?
It's about that metabolic balance, that inner peace that Vishnu represents, and it gives us that incredible force, like horsepower, to achieve our goals.
So inner harmony and then the power to do what we need to do.
Yeah, it's both.
Now, what about Ashwini's connection to leadership?
Well, Ashwini is known as a royal nakshatra. And historically, only kings, military leaders, doctors, and messengers had access to horses.
Makes sense. They all needed to be able to move quickly.
Exactly. And they all had positions of authority. And we see that today with emergency services.
Right. Police, firefighters,
Yeah.
EMTs. They're like the modern day versions of those roles.
They are. And the uniforms they wear, that connects back to Ashwini too.
That's interesting.
And even that tradition in Indian weddings of the female horse, the Godi,
Right.
that could be connected to Ashwini too. It's about vitality and starting a new life together.
Yeah, it makes sense.
The horse just represents so much.
Okay, so who are some of the deities associated with Ashwini?
Well, Ganesha is really important.
Ganesha, the remover of obstacles.
Yes, and the Lord of Beginnings. So he's always invoked at the start of anything new.
Right. Makes sense.
And then there's Hayagriva.
Hayagriva. Who's that?
He's an avatar of Vishnu with a horse head.
Whoa.
Yeah, and he represents knowledge and wisdom.
Interesting. So he's connected to that head symbolism.
Totally.
Okay, anyone else?
There's a connection to goddess Durga, or Kali, who's associated with Mars.
Right.
And Lakshmi, who's considered twice born, is worshipped when the sun is in Ashwini.
Okay.
And Saraswati, who's often depicted in white, is also important.
So many connections.
There are. And you know, Vishnu and Brahma are connected too.
Vishnu, the ruler of Pisces, and Rama, the creator, associated with Aries.
Exactly. And worshipping Veda murtis like Narasimha, Hanuman, Ganesha, and Ayyappa Swami can be really helpful too.
Okay. So many powerful deities to connect with. Now, are there any, like, omens or interesting observations related to Ashwini?
Oh, yeah, tons. And actually, even the fact that we had to reschedule this deep dive could be seen as an Ashwini thing.
Really? How so?
Well, Ashwini can be about overcoming obstacles before you can start something.
I see. Interesting.
And people with strong Ashwini influence often experience these extremes in health, like miraculous healings, but also minor issues. There's a karmic connection to metals and also a tendency towards head injuries.
Because of Mars and Aries.
Exactly. And they're often drawn to fast cars, which makes sense.
Right.
And the twin symbolism can manifest as like strong brotherly energy or being drawn to startups and family businesses.
Okay. What else?
Visiting temples dedicated to twin deities or goddesses that have both elder and younger aspects can be good.
Okay.
Offerings of alcohol or honey mead can be connected to.
Interesting.
And institutions that seem to last forever, like immortal institutions, those can be linked to Ashwini.
Really?
Yeah.
What else?
Names that have ash in them, like Ashoka,
Okay.
or herb ashwagandha, those have connections too. And the ash tree is associated with protection.
Oh, okay.
And the Ashwini Kumaras' sister, Usha, who's the dawn, she highlights the importance of a good sunrise routine.
That's cool.
Yeah. There are even celestial influences, like there's a story about a Gandharva's horse and its saliva having an impact. It's wild. And of course, horses themselves are known for their healing powers.
Right. What about the bird associated with Ashwini?
That would be the swan.
The swan.
Yeah, it symbolizes wisdom and that whole journey of transformation, like the ugly duckling story.
I see.
And it can also represent those unexpected events, like black swan events.
Okay.
And people with Ashwini influence are often drawn to emergency and disaster relief work.
Wow.
There are karmic connections to heights and skyscrapers.
Interesting.
And there's this tradition of not looking at the moon through palm leaves.
Okay.
Might be linked to Rahu. People with Ashwini often have this intuitive connection to herbs and nature.
Cool.
Past life karmas and spiritual practices can influence the present, too.
Okay.
Purification practices are important, like panchakarma and the 5 Tibetan rites,
Right.
but you have to be patient with those, and connections to military families are often seen, too.
That's a lot to take in.
It is.
But it all ties back to those core themes.
Healing, speed, new beginnings, duality.
And that connection to the earth and the cosmos.
It's all connected.
So let's talk about some yogic practices that are good for Ashwini.
So hum breathing is really powerful.
So,
Yeah, you breathe in while thinking, so, and breathe out while thinking,
okay.
It's great for balancing those pranavayus,
Right?
and Saraswati is connected to Samanavayu.
The balancing breath.
That's it.
Okay.
And the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna nadis are important too.
Those energy channels?
Yeah. And the people tree, which gives off so much oxygen. It's really significant.
What else?
Well, it's interesting because Ashwathama, who is born under Ashwini, he kind of foreshadows modern drones in a way.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it's weird. And the Hamsadari Raga is also connected to Ashwini.
Okay. And are there any modern healing practices that relate?
Well, people are exploring things like red light therapy and hydrogenated water. It's kind of like that connection to light and purification that Ashwini has. And we can't forget about Ashwini's playful side.
That's right. They're not all serious.
No, they're known for being pranksters, and they have a good sense of humor.
Oh, I like that.
And there's a symbolic connection to Mitra and Varuna.
Day and night.
Exactly.
That duality again.
And even the black and white horses on a chessboard.
Strategy and opposites.
Totally.
It's so fascinating how all this connects. Like, we've got the myths, the astronomy, the healing practices, even folklore.
It all comes together
to make this incredible tapestry that is Ashwini Nakshatra.
It's about that deep human connection to the universe.
And it's so relevant to our lives.
Yeah, think about it. All these areas where you might want things to happen quickly.
New projects, new beginnings.
Exactly. And how the essence of Ashwini, that focus on the breath, the balance of opposites, that drive for well-being.
Right?
How that can help you approach things differently.
I love that. So as we finish up here, it's clear that Ashwini is about so much. Healing, acting quickly, starting fresh, embracing that duality.
And tapping into that vital force inside us.
It's like ancient wisdom that's still so relevant today.
It is.
And it impacts our health, our careers, even how we understand consciousness itself.
So as you're thinking about Ashwini, think about what you need to awaken within yourself.
Like, what inner physician or what swift messenger do you need to call upon?
Exactly.
That's such a great way to put it. And guys, we've really just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore.
You can dive into Vedic astrology, learn more about the horse in different cultures, read those stories about the Ashwini Kumaras.
Yeah, and try things like mindful breathing, connecting with nature.
All of that can help you connect with this energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let us know what you find out.
Yeah, we'd love to keep this conversation going.
We'd love to hear your insights and questions.
And maybe do another deep dive in the future.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Bye, everyone.